Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized.
Thank you. I yield to Mr. Jordan.
Secretary, have any of the 42 illegal migrants on the terrorist watch list or no-fly list encountered on our southwest border been released into the United States?
Ranking Member Jordan, as I mentioned before, I will provide that data to you with respect to the disposition of each one. I do not know the answer to your question.
The Secretary of Homeland Security does not know the answer to the status of 42 individuals who came to our southern border illegally, are on the no-fly list and the terrorist watch list. You do not know whether they have been released or not into the country. That's your testimony.
Ranking Member Jordan, as I've said before, I will provide you the data. I
yield back to the gentleman. That's amazing.
Mr. Secretary, this is outrageous. At your oath of office ceremony on February 2, 2021, you said, quote, "The mission of the Department of Homeland Security is to safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values." On the website of DHS, it describes the mission. It says the Department of Homeland Security secures the nation's air, land, and sea borders to prevent illegal activity and is focused on securing our borders and keeping our communities safe. Sir, you're the 7th Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of the 3rd largest federal department in the United States and the largest immigration system in the world. You are given immense power and an absolutely critical responsibility. Of all of our federal agencies, sir, I think yours is the one that has the smallest margin of error. Because if the Secretary of Homeland Security is unable or unwilling to give these answers, to perform his duties and accomplish his mission, crime surges, chaos ensues, and innocent people die. And Mr. Mayorkas, that is exactly what is happening on your watch. All of us have been down to the border. We've seen this with our own eyes, and we are outraged. And so are our constituents and all law-abiding citizens in this country. They're outraged because of your deliberate and defiant policies. These are the documented facts. We have a literal invasion of lawless masses flooding over our border from more than 160 countries. The safety and security of the American people are being directly threatened, and innocent children, sir, are being abducted, assaulted, raped, and murdered by human traffickers. Countless numbers of known terrorists and vicious gang members are clearly coming across our border and making their way into our communities all over the country. The precious treasure of American taxpayers is being used to incentivize and reward all this because illegals are given food, clothing, health care, cell phones, welfare benefits, and we also, the taxpayers, pay for ghost flights and bus tickets so they can send them around and secretly transfer these folks into all of our communities across the country. It is your policies, and because of them, that our entire country is becoming a crime scene. And we are dealing with a humanitarian disaster that would have been unimaginable just 3 or 4 years ago. Because of your policies, the drug cartels are making billions of dollars and building their empires, and they are drowning our streets in fentanyl and other deadly substances, and that has made drug overdoses, as you know now, the #1 cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45. Our brave Border Patrol and law enforcement agencies and officers are completely overwhelmed, and they are personally endangered. And the rule of law is being trampled underfoot, and the stability and the very sovereignty of our nation is being threatened like never before. I have a long list of questions I was anxious to ask you today, but I've been watching you. You know, you've been on Capitol Hill for 3 days now. You've been in 3 committees. You have an extraordinary talent, I think, for evading questions, and you've provided answers that are not accurate, and that's documented. You're insulting the intelligence of the American people, and you're subjecting them to extraordinary danger. This is not a game. It's been detailed over and over this week, and here again today. You have presided over the greatest immigration catastrophe in American history, and it's an objective truth that you have helped design and implement this system. You took your oath of office in February last year, and by the end of the first year, ICE recorded the highest number of border crossings and the lowest number of deportations in history. Fact. You have stated publicly in direct defiance of our laws that, quote, being here illegally by itself is not enough to be removed, unquote. If DHS does not deport illegals, that is, apprehend and quickly remove people who cross into our country illegally, then we have no border security at all. We all know that after Title 42 is repealed, 18,000 immigrants a day are going to result coming over that border. It's going to be a total collapse of operational control. If people are allowed to simply walk in here and live and work and collect taxpayer-funded benefits and assistance for years upon years and maybe permanently, then in a very short period of time, we'll be totally overwhelmed. We'll be crushed by the sheer numbers and the weight of illegal immigration, and there will no longer be any border, any security here, any sovereignty at all. We won't have a country. I called for your resignation in July of last year and explained then that it had already become crystal clear that you were either unable or unwilling to do your job. But as has been said here today now, based upon the facts and the evidence, we've concluded you're doing this intentionally. It is despicable. I believe these are impeachable offenses, and Mr. Secretary, my advice to you is to begin your search for a different career field very soon, because there will be an election, and the American people will let their voices be heard on this, and we will be taking the majority. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 133 members of Congress to the Secretary expressing our concern that his actions in opening our border and inaction in enforcing our laws are endangering American lives.
Without objection, and the time of the gentleman has expired. Mr. Swalwell.
I've only got 25 seconds. I'll just say I don't have time for a question because you'll be elusive, but I just, for the record, since we're stating things for the record, I've been in Congress 7 years. I think you're the most dishonest witness that has ever appeared before the Judiciary Committee. And I think I speak for a lot of my colleagues. This is such a frustrating exercise for us because our constituents want answers. They're tired of the open border. They're tired of people dying from fentanyl overdoses, and it's your fault. It's my time.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
No, there's no point of order in the middle of this. This is my opinion. I think it's shared by millions of American people.
Based on the
Please show no shame.
Chairman, this is based on the standard that the chairman set out in previous hearings. Calling a witness dishonest is over the line that you drew at a previous hearing.
I'm not pulling the words down. That speaks for the American people.
The chair now recognizes, I said to the secretary we would go 5 more minutes, then give you a break. I know you've been at this 2.5 hours. I believe the gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
I don't have a winter house yet, Mr. Chairman, but
I knew it was Maryland.
yeah.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. This is a story as old as the hills. You got a politician who does certain things. Those actions then benefit his family financially, and then there's an effort to conceal it and sweep it under the rug. The best example is to go back to the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. 4 key facts about Hunter Biden's involvement with this company and Joe Biden's involvement. First, Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma. Second, he's not qualified to be on the board of Burisma. Don't take my word for it. He said it himself. Third, he's asked by the executives of Burisma, can you weigh in with Washington, with D.C. to help alleviate the pressure we are under? 3 days later, the Vice President of the United States, now President Joe Biden, goes to Ukraine and conditions American tax dollars for Ukraine on the firing of the prosecutor who was applying the pressure to the company Hunter Biden was on the board of. That's why we're going with an official impeachment inquiry vote today. That's why this needs to be investigated. There are 2 resolutions we're considering. Resolution 918 and Resolution 917 incorporated if we pass 918. 3 names mentioned in those 2 resolutions. One name, of course, is Joe Biden, President of the United States. But the other 2 names in Resolution 917 are 2 DOJ tax lawyers, Mark Daley and Jack Morgan. 2 guys we want to talk to that the Biden Justice Department says we're not going to let you talk to them. With this vote, we think we get to talk to those individuals. And here's why it's important. These guys, these 2 individuals, initially said there should be felony tax charges for 2014, 2015 in the Hunter Biden investigation. And that's important because those are the years when the bulk of the income from Burisma came to Hunter Biden. They initially said there should be felony tax charges for those years. Then they changed their position. 8 months later, they changed their position. We want to know why. Why did you do that? Why did you let the statute of limitations, intentionally let the statute of limitations lapse for those years? My theory is it's one thing to charge Hunter Biden on a gun charge in Delaware. It's another thing to say we're not going to charge, another thing to charge him on Burisma tax years, because that gets you to Joe Biden. That gets you to the White House. That's why we need this vote. The impeachment power, as the chairman said, is a power that solely resides in the House. When you have a majority of the House of Representatives go on record, that sends a message. We think we get timely participation from the witnesses we need to talk to and the documents Mr. Comer has been seeking. Finally, I would say this about this changing story from the White House, this changing story from the Justice Department. Today, Hunter Biden did a press conference. He was supposed to be in a deposition. He did a press conference. And at that press conference, he said, my father was not financially involved in the business. Well, that's an important qualifier. We haven't heard that. For 3 years, we haven't heard that. All we've heard is Joe Biden had no involvement. Now his son does a press conference when he's supposed to be being deposed and says he wasn't financially involved. Well, what involvement was it? We know there was phone calls, dinners, and meetings. What involvement was it? That's why we want to ask these questions with important witnesses. That's why this resolution is important. I urge a yes vote. With that, I yield back.